Good afternoon, Keith. It's always a pleasure talking to you. I'm really excited to have this conversation with you regarding your take on well-being and your perspective on well-being and what your organization is doing. Before we get into the conversation, can I request you to give an overview of what you do for the benefit of our viewers?
Absolutely. I'm very pleased to be here. Thank you, Ram. So my role, I sit within the BT security division within BT. I am a senior manager for Agile transformation. So my responsibility is to help to develop Agile ways of working and also deploy change across our organization of around about 3,000 security professionals. So that's my role.
Well, okay. Now, let me jump straight into the question. What is your view on well-being?
My personal view on well-being is that it's a fundamentally important aspect for any organization to consider for the people that work in that organization, because what COVID-19 and the situation has shown us over the past few months is that if you ignore well-being, you do so at your peril. It's really important to ensure that we look after our people, not only because we have a duty of care towards them, but also because we know that there is a direct causal link between well-being and productivity. So for me, I look after my team because I know that that's the right thing to do, but I also make sure that I look after them so that we are delivering the productive outcomes that we need to for our business.
It's interesting that you say that you can actually see a direct link to productivity. And probably you're the first person who said that you can actually see it. A lot of people are finding it difficult to actually link it back. How do you do that?
It's a mixture of intuition and data. So if I think about from an intuitive perspective, how do I know that there's a link between well-being and productivity? You know that if you have someone that is feeling great about the work they're doing, is looking after themselves, is also helping ensure that they look after other people, I see it day in and day out where those people, not only do they deliver more for the business, but fundamentally they get on and they are more effective in managing their own careers. So I could name a huge amount of different examples. I have, for instance, quite a large group of graduates that are going through a graduate scheme right now. And we have people that are coming into my team working on assignments. And just today, actually, we had one of the graduates reported that he's having to self-isolate as a result of someone in the apartments where he lives, who he walks his dog with, has positively identified as having COVID-19. And we immediately gathered round this member of our team every day, every morning at 9:25. We get together and we do a 5-minute stand up and we check in on each other to make sure at a human level we're okay. This morning, this particular individual told us about the situation, and without any instruction from me, the whole team put in a different set of things that they were going to do. And immediately, because the other thing you can do now, which we're all doing much more of, is looking at your team and seeing them, the communication you get from them in terms of body language as well as the verbal communication. This guy came on the call and he could tell he looked worried, but by the end of the call, he was much more positive, leaning forward, smiling. He was actually thinking about the things that we were going to do for him. So that's more at an intuitive level. I just see it and I can sense it. But I can also say that from a data-driven perspective, people that are taking regular breaks, practicing mindfulness, exercising regularly, eating well, you can see there are so many studies that say if you do all of those things and more, then you are more productive. I go out and speak to different parts of our organization and explain to them what
virtually,
I do. Yeah, virtually,
at this point,
of course.
yes.
So socially distanced conversations, of course. But yeah, I speak to people and have done a kind of across the globe around this. And what's interesting is because I personally take well-being so important, it's so fundamentally important to me because I want to be healthy as well. I try to role model those behaviors. And when I explain the things I'm doing and what it unlocks in my ability to be able to be successful in my role, I see so many people come back afterwards and go, I can just see that connection now, and it's definitely the right thing to do. So I'm going to commit to myself to start a new habit that allows me to take on board some of the well-being steps that you've described today. So that's a couple of the ways in which I can create that causal link intuitively and also from a data-driven perspective.
Brilliant. An organization is nothing but a collection of people. So you're doing your bit from a well-being perspective. What is your organization doing? How is it from a corporate point of view? What is their value proposition?
Well, it's BT has got a very long tradition of investing in people's well-being. It's a great company that always wants to promote this as a great place to work, and so we've recognised for many years that having programs that promote well-being is a really important thing to do. With the advent of the COVID-19 situation, that has accelerated massively. So a couple of examples: Philip Janssen, our CEO. From almost the day when the UK went into lockdown, he started some very direct communications on the importance of well-being to all of our employees, all of the people in our organisation. He also initiated a weekly call with every member of the senior management team. So the most senior people in BT, we join a video call every week and we talk about things that are going on, and always very high up on that agenda is well-being. Our Chief Medical Officer, Tony Caddis-Green, he also does a weekly update on the things that we need to be aware of from a COVID perspective, but with a very specific slant on well-being. There are lots of webinars, there's lots of papers to read, there is advice that's given to you. It's a huge update once a week that there are so many different resources to. So it's very clear to every single one of us that this is an important topic, because we get pulled into sessions where we talk about it, we're offered resources to be engaged in it, and I see more and more people realizing that actually, as this COVID situation goes on for longer and longer, they realize that they need it. Just this week, I was on a senior management team meeting, and two very senior people said, look, I need to hold my hands up and say, I'm going to expose a bit of personal vulnerability now, but I've just come back from having a week's leave. And it wasn't until I went on leave and I started to decompress that I realized how much I needed to start to look after my own well-being. So I've come in with a concerted focus on making sure I do things in a different way now. And that was great, because it unlocked a whole other conversation with people about the importance of us all taking leave, but also when we're not on leave, looking after ourselves.
Interesting. Now, if you look at well-being, as you rightly said, there are multiple aspects to it, right? So if you talk about financial well-being, that's one of the major reasons of stress for people who are not earning that much. So if I've got a problem financially, normally I wouldn't like my boss to know about it. How do you actually ensure that that stress doesn't get spilled over in what they do?
It's a tough question, because there's also, as an employer and as a leader of a team, I have a series of different roles that I play. I play a role as a line manager, as a leader. I also am a mentor to different people. But one thing I'm most certainly not is a professional counsellor. I need to make sure that I understand that there's a line between what I do and what I should do, and the things that I need to trust in professional counsellors. So within BT, we have a very clear kind of a line in the sand, if you like, that says if you suspect that there are some challenges for people because they're finding themselves in struggling from a financial well-being perspective, then the first thing that we should do is refer them to a professional counsellor that can help that. And we have actually got confidential helplines within the company that allow them to speak without any fear of any compromise on their own situation. So I've been a leader and a manager for more than 25 years. So over that period, you just get that intuition where you feel like actually there's something else at play here. Something else needs to be done. And more often than not, I informally speak with the individual and say, look, I really think you need to talk to a professional about this, because it appears to me that there is an issue I can't make you do it, but my personal recommendation would be it would be a good thing for you to have that conversation. So quite a fine line, but I think that's what I normally do when I see there's an issue in that area.
Speaking of well-being, from a performance point of view, I know that the market has actually grown significantly. I think last year it was worth $40 billion or something, and it's growing at 6% per annum. Now, what started off as a health, then a fitness initiative, now is spilled over to well-being. The intention is probably well-being will help us, A, improve productivity, and B, fuel collaboration. And we are seeing a lot of collaboration happening now. But productivity has not gone up by any measure, and we know that. Now, when you come out of lockdown, there's going to be money that is going to be scarce. So is it wrong for organizations to question the return on investment on well-being initiatives if A, it is not helping the individual, improving productivity, or they can't connect it to performance?
I think it's because, as you said earlier on in the call, it's quite tricky to be able to create that direct linkage that's, beyond reasonable doubt can be proven. So it's a conversation actually that we've had internally about when we're writing business cases, what are the implicit and explicit benefits that you can genuinely prove. And there is a growing, not comprehensive, but a growing group of leaders that factor in the implicit benefits as well, such as the well-being of individuals will lead to a higher productivity. So I wouldn't say that we totally converted to it as an organization, but I would say that there are more and more people that they'll use it as an influencing factor. That, say, for instance, a business case where we're looking at making investment was potentially marginal in terms of whether we accept it and proceed or whether we stop and say, no, we need to do something else. They'll take that into consideration and go, okay, that got it over the line. There was enough value in that as well, even though we couldn't create that direct hard link that was measurable in a very, very clear and unambiguous way. But it's good enough because we know it would work and it's intuitively the right thing to do.
Which is fair enough, because any measurement is basically going to be valid till it is proved wrong, right? Measures at the fundamental level, yeah. We have to start off with the fundamental belief that 1 + 1 = 2. What if it isn't? So there's going to be an ambiguity at any given point in time. So that's great to hear. Another question I had is, if you look at individuals, their well-being needs might be different for different people, depending on the strata they are in, the age, the maturity, and so on and so forth. So if you are throwing some well-being initiatives as a corporate, how do you ensure that everyone's well-being needs are actually met? Like, if you can give me some examples, that'll be brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, first thing, I don't think there's a perfect answer. I always love the answer that I hear when I go and meet colleagues in India, where I ask them a very specific question and they answer with 2 words: it depends. And I think I'm going to kind of use that answer here a little bit to say, actually, it depends, because you might say that the perfect answer for an organization is to choose a whole spectrum of different things and apply the same amount of energy, regardless of the feedback they're getting, into every one of those initiatives. Personally speaking, the world doesn't work like that. It's much more organic. So, and I think what we're doing within BT is the kind of right approach, which is in essence basically saying, we've got all these things out there. If you want to take part in them, then they'll continue. But the ones that don't receive any attention and energy in terms of interest, and people aren't consuming it, then they won't go to it. So an example I can give is that our chief medical officer negotiated with the company that run a mindfulness app called Headspace, and negotiated a free subscription for, I think it was about 3 or 4 months, for anyone in BT who wanted to sign up to it. I think it's on the proviso that at the end of that there would be a subscription that you would end up paying, so it had a business benefit to Headspace. But that was really well subscribed, so they've kind of continued that. In fact, they've extended the free period as well because lockdown has continued for a longer period. But had that not received the attention, the offer, people just didn't take it up, we would have just stopped. And I think that's actually an indicator of a much more mature organisation that says we're going to experiment, we're going to try things. If they work, we'll continue. If they don't, we'll stop. And we don't mind if there is failure, because there is failure everywhere, and we need to accept that unless you're willing to push the boundaries and experiment, then you're never going to really do more than the very, very basic things. So that's how we're doing it here, and I think it's the right thing. If it gets taken up, we keep going. If it doesn't, we stop and try something else. I don't know that there's a perfect answer to get everyone's needs and know what they are. I think it's more about just getting out there and experimenting and finding the sweet spot by the level of interest you get.
Interesting. Now, the world is actually coping with the new normal, as they say, right? Now, when you come out of it, you've got all the plans in place. I'm sure BT has got a lot of plans in place. If you're going to advise a smaller company or a smaller organization, what they should be mindful of, top 3 things that they should, look out for or integrate it as part of their strategy, what would that be?
That is a tricky question. I mean, the things that we're doing here are we're focusing on authenticity. So as a leader within BT, I'll be, I'm expected to present my authentic self and ensure, because being authentic is a means through which you open up communication, and people are more responsive and open to what they need, being heard for their needs. So we're focusing on authenticity as authentic leaders, making sure we speak with our own voice, that we are passionate but truthful about the things that we do. So I think that would be one thing that we should do, is authenticity. I think the second thing I would say is transparency, is making sure that people have got much more open information that's available to them that demonstrates that everyone is being treated as an adult, and trusting that they know how to use that information. And we've definitely gone from strength to strength there. And again, that's about building up the trust between the individual and the organisation, so that people feel like they're more embraced when they're in the work environment. I think that the last thing, though, is we've also got a sense of responsibility and making sure that I feel responsible for my own well-being. I also feel a sense of responsibility for the well-being of my peers around me, and also the people that work for me. So it's that role modeling, that sense of responsibility is really important to us as an organisation. And I notice it more and more because I spend a large part of my day on calls much like this one where we're speaking, and there is almost always the human interaction at the beginning and the end of those meetings before we get down to business. And that's definitely much more evident than it would have been even just a year ago. So but that's a responsibility towards finding out about someone, learning about where they're doing and how things are going for them and the challenges they face. And fundamentally, because people are now working in their home environment, there's a lot more going on that you can see that allows you to have that conversation and have the discussion. So I think it's those things. It's the authenticity, transparency and responsibility would be the first 3 things that I think of.
Brilliant. So you're saying well-being is an art. Be authentic, be responsible, be transparent. Fantastic. Thanks a lot for your time and insights, Keith. As fascinating as always. Really enjoyed talking to you.
Well,
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome, and it was great to spend a bit of time with you again, Ram. I'll no doubt be speaking to you soon. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you.